Hello and welcome back to the InterDrone podcast, 30,000 foot view of the commercial drone industry. Sorry for being a few minutes late today. My name is CJ Smith, joined today with Michael Peel, chairman of InterDrone, and our special guest, Brett Kanda, vice president of sales and marketing for BRINC Drones. BRINC designs and manufactures advanced indoor and outdoor tactical UAVs for SWAT teams around the world. Really excited to have him on the show today. Brett, can you give a brief background of yourself, maybe how you got into the drone industry, and then talk to us a little bit about BRINC. I think we talked a little bit offline, some really cool kind of indoor missions you guys can do, and you mentioned how we're saving lives already using this type of technology, especially on the front lines. So if you want to just kind of give us that brief overview, and we'll dive into some deeper topics around BRINC later. But just talk to us about how you got into the drone space and what you do today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, guys. Excited to be here. So I got started in the drone industry back in 2013. I have a very different background than the majority of our colleagues in the industry. Most come from a technology background or engineering background, and prior to getting into the industry, I played professional golf for a living. It was kind of all I ever did and all I knew. And as I was getting ready to transition out of doing that for a living, I was very close to going back to school to get my master's in business. I knew that business is what I wanted to do. It was definitely a passion and something I was interested in. So at about the same time, right before I submitted an application to get my master's, one of my good buddies from college golf came to me with the Phantom 1. So this was the end of 2012, early 2013, and a basic Google search would come up with only DJI, and that's about it. There was no education, there were no companies, very little outside of the military that you could find. So he kind of came to me with the idea of, hey man, let's go film golf courses and use drones instead of helicopters. And kind of the light bulb went off. I was like, that makes a lot of sense. I'm in, sign me up. Let's learn the hard way. I'd rather go out and try and get kicked around learning business versus, spending six figures on getting a master's. So we joined up, started an aerial cinematography photography company based out of Las Vegas, and the PGA Tour was our first client, naturally. Nice. And we did quite a bit of production work. That transitioned into a little bit more of aerial data collection. So for about 3.5 years, I had a drone service provider, and this was back in the Section 333 days. The company that we started, Veriscan, was, I believe, the 33rd or 34th company to receive a Section 333 exemption. So we were doing quite a bit of production work. You know how it was back in the day. You would kind of take whatever you could when it came to the vertical that you're operating in. So we found ourselves doing quite a bit of production work, a lot of commercial real estate work, and then a lot of construction work. So did that for about 3.5 years. And what I noticed throughout those projects is when we would be in the decision maker's office, pitching our services, pitching the technology, regulation always came up. And they basically said, hey, what do you mean you can't fly next to the Vegas Strip, or you can't fly in downtown LA, you can't fly in controlled airspace, and you can't fly outside of where your eyes can actually see the drone? And every time we'd have to be like, yeah, unfortunately that's kind of the where we have to operate within. So having heard about the FAA and all the regulatory issues, naturally I went to go work for them. So I went.
You're well versed by that point.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so I went to go work for the Nevada UAS test site. I was the director of business development at the Nevada Institute for Autonomous Systems, which was one of the 6 FAA UAS test site. It was funded and sponsored by the Nevada Governor's Office of Economic Development. So my job basically was to get both domestic and international drone companies to come to Nevada to partake in NASA UTM testing, heavy lift aircraft testing, a whole laundry list of use cases that ultimately, we wanted to get drone companies to come to Nevada and set up shop here. Mm-hmm. So I got to build an amazing network doing that job, see a lot of amazing technology, was boots on the ground for UTM testing, and did that for about 2.5 years. And then our mutual and good friend Randall Warness reached out, and he was needing some support over at FLIR. And so FLIR being the amazing company that it is, I was very, very intrigued and ultimately went to go work with Randall over at FLIR, managing the commercial UAS business. So I joined him over there in 2018. So I managed global sales, software partnerships, and policy for FLIR, and really enjoyed myself. It was an amazing company to work for. And then December 1st of this year, I joined BRINC Drones, which is a very interesting company and a very unique background. And I think that the most appropriate place to start when it comes to BRINC is with our founder and CEO, Blake Resnick. Blake is a pretty exceptional entrepreneur, and I've known him for about 3 years now. And so the product that you see behind me here, which is basically a 500-pound solar-powered, self-sustaining drone in a box concept. Blake built this by himself when he was 17 years old. He got all the way up to DHS in DC, and this was back when the physical border wall was being constructed. And he basically went to the administration and said, "Hey, I can build you a mesh networked, every 50 miles, totally self-powered, self-sustaining, 24/7 surveillance system using drones." So, we all know how hard that is regulatory wise. So going back to the FAA, BBLOS was an issue, all sorts of issues that, we know this is the way the industry will operate eventually. However, it wasn't feasible at the time. So Blake pivoted, and about the same time as that pivot was happening, the October 1st Route 91 shooting happened at Mandalay Bay. And so Blake is born and raised in Las Vegas, and that was kind of an inspiration for him to build something that could have stopped that from happening. And hence the Lemur, which is the product that we have out on the market now. So before Blake put pen to paper, started to design anything, he basically spent 6 months with the Las Vegas SWAT team. He cold called them and said, "Hey, I think I can build something for you guys to really help out." But he spent 6 months with them. He went on about 25 call outs and just listened, right? So he took their feedback and said, "Hey, what do you guys need in a tactical drone?" And so after about that 6 months, he went away, went into his garage, and 3.5 months later, out came the Lemur. And so the product that we sell today is truly built by SWAT teams for SWAT teams. And we can get in a little bit later into the exact details of what makes it a good indoor tactical drone, because it is a very unique kind of niche use case. However, it's a difficult operating environment. So there are some really significant technologies that we have on board the system that make it unique in the marketplace. So here we are today.
Yeah. Can you, I mean, tons of questions, but at a high level, flying indoors versus outdoors, what new challenges does that bring, and what new technology have you guys been either using or looking at using to make that easier for the pilots?
So it's a totally different methodology. I mean, when you're flying outdoors, what you're concerned about is crashing or hitting anything, right? So as the pilot of an indoor tactical drone, you're going to hit things. You're going to crash. You need to learn how to compensate for when that happens. Every outdoor drone on the market at this point has GPS, has stabilization. You can't do that indoors. So one of the biggest issues with SWAT teams now taking Sparks and Minis and smaller systems and trying to use them for indoor tactical is, number one, they're going to lose command and control. They're also going to lose the video signal. So those are both issues, and we don't have any GPS on board. So no GPS, no user accessible firmware, no software. And that allows the system to be flown FPV with very extensive command and control and video signal, but that's really it. Our system is hardened. It's meant to take a beating. It's going to be stepped on. You will have suspects try and take it down. Little things that you don't think of for outdoor drones, like turtle mode, right? When you're in an indoor environment, it's very rare that SWAT operators are going to go into big, beautiful, spacious homes. It's usually going to be tight. It's going to be a hoarder-like environment. And if you land on your back, you need to find a way to get back over. So we have a turtle mode, right? You reverse thrust the motors and you pop back over, and the mission's not over.
Wow.
Outdoor drones don't need to do that. That is not
so
an
truly
issue.
built to task here, and it seems like it was forged over iterations, dealing directly with the client, being SWAT
Really
teams.
important. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And getting back to Blake a little bit. So Blake built like nuclear fuse reactors in his garage when he was 8 years old. He
I wouldn't doubt it.
Normal
really.
childhood.
He graduated high school at 14.
Wow.
He went to Northwestern School of Engineering at 15. Left after a semester because he didn't feel like it was the best use of his time. And he ultimately interned at McLaren Auto, Tesla, then DJI. So, and we just celebrated his 21st birthday in Washington, D.C. about 2 weeks ago. So
Nice.
he's single-handedly built the technology that you guys see now. And that
cool.
is one of the most important parts about Blake's engineering philosophy is he listens to the customer before he even puts any of his preconceived notions into the technology. What do these guys need? And then I'll build backwards from there. And the lemur's a product of that kind of philosophy. And I think that is something that a lot of components of the drone industry and a lot of companies within the drone industry can absolutely learn from, right? Because we're building tools, we're building networks for different types of end users, but every end user in our industry, no matter the vertical, have completely different needs. Right. And so this is truly, one of the world's first indoor tactical systems.
Right. Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point that most of the people building these drones aren't necessarily in those industries themselves, and they're very specific and usually niche use cases. So you have to listen to the user at the end of the day.
Yeah, going back to a conversation with our mutual friend Randall, I brought up on the FLIR podcast because he was like, "What do you give to advice of people who aren't DJI?" And I said, "Let DJI be the Toyota Camry. Let them be that sedan. And if you focus on building a Jeep, if you focus on building a go-kart, if you focus on building a tank, you'll be better off, because ultimately DJI is always going to build that Camry. They need to be able to produce something at scale. They're at the scale of a company where they can't even make investments in the smaller kind of edge cases. And ultimately, that's actually on the horizon an issue they have for penetration, right? Because there's going to be BRINCs that pop up that are hitting a very, very targeted audience. You're going to lean into answering that client's questions so well that DJI can't come in with a generalized kind of purpose drone and try to even compete. So I mean, it sounds like there was a lot of lessons learned in what was a short career for somebody so young, but it's still learning so fast. I mean, clearly he took the border wall kind of situation and saying, I'm not building to my dream, I'm building to task now. And I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround. I'm 35 and I haven't done anything close to that.
Trust me,
learning.
That's how I feel every day.
Sure.
The ability for me to listen to the customer and then translate that over to Blake and say, hey, can you build this? And generally speaking, the answer is yes, and then he does it. So it's a pretty remarkable capability. And the DJI point that you made is a really good one, right? It's going to be really difficult for companies to compete against DJI. And there's quite a few now, right? This is kind of the rise of the domestic US-based drone hardware manufacturer. I think we're going to see that over the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. And that's good for the industry. DJI is an amazing company with amazing technology that we all have come to know and use on a daily basis. But for our industry to be more robust, more deal flow, there needs to be a healthier ecosystem of companies, I think, and options on the market for specific users. Because I can't tell you how many times I have conversations with SWAT operators that basically say, yeah, we bought a bunch of Sparks and Minis and we're trying to fly it indoors and it kind of works, but the minute it crashes, the mission's over. We can't see if the lights are out. All these different things that are addressed directly in the lemur. And you're right, purpose-built systems are definitely the future. But as I've gone over, we have a pretty robust product roadmap to hit other niches. But As much as I've already talked about the pain of FAA regulation and you know what we have to deal with an industry, we fly indoors. It's a beautiful thing. We don't have to worry about FAA.
Right.
The only time we fly outdoors is if you're doing an exterior clearing of a building, and the tactical BDLOS waiver that Drone Responders has created a template for pretty much covers our use case to a T. So it is very refreshing to not have to worry about airspace, to not have to worry about operating altitudes over people, because in a SWAT call out, everybody in that environment is part of the mission.
Right.
So you can absolutely fly over people, but again, you're mostly going to be indoors. So
Yeah.
It is absolutely refreshing to not have regulatory red tape when you're selling a piece of hardware into this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge consideration.
Huge.
You know, for the person buying it too. You
Yep.
know, until
Yeah.
that's completely spelled out. I think what we are on 30, we got some time, even though the remote ID rule has been proposed now.
Got some time.
Before we're solid on that.
Yeah,
I think that,
absolutely.
but the indoor part is a really interesting piece. We covered an article earlier this year about flying drones indoor to inspect subway stations, and just them not having to go through these different approval processes or check those boxes is something that I didn't really consider, but it's kind of a silver lining, I guess, for anybody doing indoor flight.
Yeah. The barrier to entry for adoption is less in this particular niche, and a really cool story about the company, and I'm sure you guys will see more of Blake moving forward, but you know, he was an 18-year-old kid that cold called the third busiest SWAT team in the country, went in there and pitched a group of 15 or 20 SWAT guys, and the first interaction that they had, they almost laughed him out of the room. They said, "Hey, we know about this drone stuff. Doesn't work for us. We don't believe in it. We don't think anything's built for what we need." And so literally almost got laughed out of the room. And we now have 7 active Las Vegas SWAT team members that consult to the company. And when
awesome.
Blake went back after 3.5 months of work and showed him what he had built, it's pretty cool to see your end users believe in the product and the technology so much that they're willing to go through the outside employment process with their department. And now these guys consult to us. They go out and do our demos. So when we try and demo as much as we possibly can, because we understand that drone demos don't always go properly, and you know, we like to show that we can, you know, attend a demo in a non-sanitized environment, non-controlled environment. Tell us what you want it to do, and we'll do it for you guys. But we send out SWAT team members. We send one pilot/engineer to troubleshoot and to actually pilot. But the pitch is coming from a SWAT team member, so they can talk shop, they can talk the language, and it's been incredibly valuable for the company to have somebody with operational experience that are out there day to day saving people's lives, vouching for the technology in the company.
Right.
I think it would be hard to undervalue how amazing that is, that you're able to get clients to actually be advocates, especially when you're dealing with SWAT or law enforcement or search and rescue. Like, their tolerance for failure or low value products is zero, because it's their lives, you know, it's other people's lives. So I've when you told me that on the pre-call, I'm still kind of amazed, but like, you know, I would expect nothing less from you at this point. So
Cool. Yeah.
I just want to bring up a cool thing from the chat. We got Mark 1075 from looks like he's from New York. Very cool product. I reached out to the website. New York State wants to discuss an opportunity, so make sure you don't miss that one.
Yeah. It's so I started December 1st, and I cannot believe the amount of inbound and the demand that's being generated with almost no marketing at this point. And I think it really speaks to the product. We have now demoed for every major city in the U.S., and the feedback that we're getting is extremely positive. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that in a city like New York, which we have been there, that is the ultimate test for a technology like ours. You fly in the middle of Manhattan, obviously a lot of interference, as urban as it gets. Most drones are going to really struggle, and we had no issues with video penetration, command and control signal, and it was a really useful tool that they hadn't seen the likes of. So it's been exciting. I'm totally overwhelmed, which is great.
Yeah.
It's fun. Getting ready to bring on a director of BD that I'm sure you guys know, and he's starting on Monday, On God Singh from Pix4D.
Yeah.
Oh,
so, he's awesome.
Yeah, On God's great. I can't wait for him to start.
Smart.
Yeah,
wow.
he's coming on Monday. He's going to be my director of BD. So we're really trying to build out a world-class team here and to grow this company. And I can't wait for him to start because I need some support. It's been so crazy.
It's good. Yeah,
Wow,
good problem to have,
I should
right?
send Pix4D my condolences. That's great talent.
I know. And Chris Cressy's a great guy. He's the best. And so, we feel really fortunate to have him coming over here.
Cool. Well, I want to jump into. We picked out 3 articles that we like to do a quick kind of news roundup every week on the podcast, and I think this is actually a good segue. I know DJI was mentioned, and then Brett, you mentioned FPV. So this first article, DJI's future first-person drone surfaces in an unboxing video. So it's shown in the unboxing video. DJI's latest first-person view drone has a rumored maximum speed of 93 miles per hour and boasts front and downward-facing sensors to help it dodge obstacles. People say, what is FPV drone? First-person view. They connect to a video transmitter, send the live video from the drone's cameras to FPV goggles, headsets, and other displays, such as smartphones and other devices. So, Brett, you mentioned that a lot of the BRINC drones are FPV. I think you're kind of in a unique position to just talk a little bit about this technology, what it offers, maybe what its limitations are, and why would what benefits, I guess, does FPV and having like a headset on, what does that bring me as opposed to looking at it on a smartphone, tablet, or some other display?
So there's a lot of parallels in our technology to FPV racing. Our pilots have the option to fly via FPV goggles. We don't have a gimbal on our system. That would make it, less durable, less ruggedized. So our camera is FPV style. We use, specific algorithms for video transmission, but the majority of our team, the mechanics and the techs in the back building have DRL backgrounds. Most of these guys are drone racing league pilots. They've flown for DRL. That is their background and their expertise. And our drone, unlike outdoor systems like DJI, where you can kind of watch a video and troubleshoot and go out and fly, you have to have some stick skill system. So there are a lot of technology overlaps happening with the DJI FPV system and our technology. And in true DJI fashion, it's really good. All of our guys have taken a look at it. They've used it and are very impressed. And the most important part of what they've been able to do is, number one, range. Mm-hmm. But they've been able to move away from an analog system over to digital.
Right.
Using the headset. That was a huge barrier. Yeah. Video quality.
Like when you would explain that to people, it seemed like weird. Like, are we moving backwards in time? But there was actual reasons for stability that it was a better choice at the time.
Sure.
So what changed?
Yeah.
Analog video allows you to penetrate through walls.
Right.
Significantly easier. And so that's why, but also when you use analog, it reduces the image quality. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. And what DJI has been able to do is actually get both the best worlds. So they've been able to maintain, if not extend, their signal, both command and control and video, through a digital system. So you have the 1080p, potentially 4K video stream that's happening for the pilot. So the clarity is improved. And when you're flying in really tight environments, you need to have that resolution, right? Systems like ours, we're flying through cars, we're flying under couches, we're flying, If the drone can physically fit through an area, we're trying to fly through there. Because at the end of the day, our system is there to clear rooms, right? And take the place of a physical breacher on a SWAT team first in to clear rooms. So the DJI system that they've built is very impressive, that you don't have to trade off anymore, right? You can get that digital video quality and signal, but not lose the penetration capabilities. So, you know, again, hats off to DJI and another great product that, you know, is absolutely innovative.
And in FPV drones, when I'm looking through the headset, am I just looking at just like I would see the screen, or is it more like a virtual reality type of thing where I can actually swivel my head and look around and I'm getting more vantage points?
No, it is not necessarily the augmented reality.
Yeah.
It's exactly what the camera's seeing. So,
Okay.
you know, our system is 1080p, right? So you can see it. It's going to be a 1080 stream into the goggles. So I would say it's 60-40. Our customers saying that they want to fly via goggles or not. We have a proprietary hand controller with a 7-inch built-in monitor that sometimes operators say, hey, when I put the goggles on, I tend to get dizzy. I tend to lose situational awareness. I don't necessarily like not being able to see. But others like to be totally immersed in it, like a drone racing league pilot, right? Or an FPV pilot. So it's totally preferential, you know, what you prefer and what you feel most comfortable with. But no, it's not augmented reality quite yet. However, I think, you know, a combination of training and operations are trending that way. I think we will see that in probably the pretty near future.
When I think back to your point about video quality too, I mean, to get augmented reality video back to something, you need just even stronger connection, right?
Lots of compute
sending
power.
more bigger bandwidth.
Even before it gets sent over the wire, the compute power.
Yeah, and it has to be done. It has to be done essentially in real time if you're flying a drone, right? That there can't be a lag on it. So.
No, latency is a big deal.
Yeah,
a huge issue when it comes to making decisions and, you know, tactical operations. They need to be able to see exactly what's going on, and you know, our technology does have the ability to distribute video feed. So if the SWAT commander who's ultimately running the show and making the decisions is sitting on the beach in Cabo, he could pop into a browser and watch what's going on in the mission. So. That you know, being able to distribute that video with low latency is a really important capability of an indoor tactical system.
Right.
So we got a comment from Mark 1075. I just want to make sure, or you know, so he's talking about the DJI drone not being compliant because it's Chinese, but I just want to see if you can speak to the specific compliance that it wouldn't fit. So is your system, because it's made in the USA or TAA compliant, can be purchased currently, but with federal funding? So is that the case? Your system can be purchased by federal funding, and that is not the case on this FPV DJI drone?
Yeah, it's exactly right. We are a U.S. company based in Las Vegas. Our headquarters are here, and our supply chain is 75% U.S. That we do not have any internet connectivity, and we can absolutely be procured through federal agencies and through federal funds. We're a U.S. company through and through.
Okay.
So you mentioned, or I think CJ mentioned innovation, but I mean, what's the play here? Because I would think that the FPV crowd is more of a DIYer, you know, builder, tweakers. That doesn't seem like it's necessarily DJI's target audience for their drones.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of the drone racing league guys are DIY. They love to build, and so and that's one of the biggest challenges for us, because we're not a custom shop. We're not a small shop. We want to operate in high volumes. And that's something that we've had to learn as a company, is how to make this scalable, make our production and our manufacturing scalable. And that comes with really not deviating too much from the baseline of the technology. So there are absolutely agencies that have specific requests that we are able to do. However, you know, our system is pretty much turnkey, and because Blake early on listened and built all of the features that tactical teams need, we're not missing much. So we are, really focused on production and manufacturing and being able to crank out as many systems as we can. And that right there is the difficulty of being a hardware company in this space. That is it, and that takes experienced people, the manufacturing capabilities, and Blake has his passion amongst many others really is manufacturing. So he spends the majority of his time back in production building, and it's something that we're improving on every day. But yeah, it's definitely something that as we grow as a company is something that will always be at the forefront of being able to manufacture at scale and be able to deliver systems in a palatable time frame. And it is common in the drone industry that customers have to wait a long time for the product. And we absolutely don't want to go that route. We want customers to be able to get their systems quickly, but we do require training. So, public safety agencies can't necessarily turn on a dime and have 4 to 6 officers or pilots, and the next week take off 3 days to come fly some drones. So, there will always be a little bit of a lead time. However, we just don't want it to be extensive. And so yeah, that's kind of our main focuses at the moment.
Want to move on to the next article, CJ?
Yeah, and Mark, thank you for the questions, and anybody else tuning in, please drop your questions in the chat, and we'll get those answered. Second article on our list today, we'll get a little controversial. So drones with facial recognition are primed to fly, but the world is not ready yet. So some of the first drones with advanced facial recognition capabilities are being developed by Israeli surveillance companies as American police consider whether they will soon be adding the controversial technology to their unmanned systems. So Mike, I'd love to send this over to you. Tend not to shy.
I love these topics.
I was going to say, you don't really tend to shy away from stuff like this, but I think a common thing that we always come back to is the privacy laws exist, whether your camera's on a drone or whether your camera's in somebody's hand or on a street sign. And then this is at the end of the day, this is software. Facial recognition software is becoming more and more prevalent. But what do you see as the future of this? And then Brett, I'd love your insight as well. Especially coming kind of from a public safety, law enforcement kind of lens. But Mike, do you think we'll start to see this, and what complications obviously arise with having this technology on aircraft?
Yeah, well, I'm not a lawyer, but as we've said, and other experts on this podcast have said before, if there's no distinction, there's no real legal distinction between a drone and a camera on a pole, right? So if you're outdoors, you're in public space, depending on your municipality, you might already be watched in public by street cameras. You might already be under facial recognition surveillance. The thing is, how is it used? And I think law enforcement, when engaging with this type of technology, needs to be cognizant of that. Can't be hand wavy, like, don't worry about it, this is nothing new. I think being upfront about how it's being used, why it's completely parallel to existing technologies, and when it's deployed, right? I think ultimately that's the big thing. The case against a street camera versus a drone's probably only going to be deployed if the need already has arisen, right? Like we're tracking a suspect in an area, etc. Whereas the street camera has permanence. So if you're not worried about those, you really should probably be less concerned about what's going on with a drone. But yeah, again, I always, especially after the pandemic kind of outrage of the drones yelling at people to get off the street and things like that, I think it's always important for public safety agencies to think about the optics and think about the unfamiliarity. And also think about the fact that the device is flying and there's a certain kind of lower brain psychological reaction to that's inescapable. before engaging with drone technology and thinking about how they communicate with the public about their drone technology's use.
Right. Yeah. And it seems like we're already getting pushback or privacy concerns by just the use of drones at all, and then also by the use of this facial recognition technology with or without a drone. And when you combine them, we're kind of getting this perfect storm a little bit. But Brett, what are some of your thoughts? Oh, shoot.
Did Brett freeze?
You lose him?
Oh, I hope not.
There he is.
Can you guys?
Oh, there.
Hey,
Yeah,
we're back. Yeah.
All right, we're back.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a sensitive one, and especially in is my internet all right? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. No, you're humming along. You're making it through. Yeah.
All right. Good. I would say that it's definitely a climate, but transparency is definitely the key, and being very open and communicating who has access to this data, who's making decisions based on what they see, and what the public safety agencies are actually using it for, right? If it's used for public good, if it's used to help identify criminals, to help keep people safe, I think public safety agencies are all for it. However, yeah, privacy is going to be an issue, right? This is a fine line that the industry has to walk. And drones without facial recognition, they still have hurdles culturally, politically. They're not fully accepted yet. There are still cohorts around the world that see this as the eye in the sky, still at this point. So as society becomes more comfortable with it, as it's communicated more and more clearly, most importantly, I think that it will happen. And as we see drones with advanced AI and machine vision algorithms to classify people, cars, automobile, anything that moves, right? We're starting to see some really advanced algorithms, and facial recognition is definitely the next step in that for public safety agencies. But I think we are in a new world of policing where technology is going to be more acceptable to a lot of people, especially as younger generations continue to develop. I think it's going to be something that, as long as it is managed properly, the correct people have access to the facial recognition software, it's going to be something that's going to help save people. And at the end of the day, that's what a lot of drone technology is there to do, is to help save lives and keep people safe. So if it achieves those two goals and those two outcomes, I think adoption will be widespread. But you're never going to satisfy everybody. There will always be people that say, hey, that is an absolute invasion on my privacy. I do not want my face being registered by cameras all around my city. So I don't think you're ever going to have 100% buy-in on something like facial recognition, and especially from drones.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, I think that other technologies, specifically just stationary cameras, will precede kind of the ethical and societal discussions that arise from that. Will actually, I think, always be one step behind from it being implemented elsewhere. But again, even though we're one step behind, I just think our device is different in kind of the fundamental frame of how people think about it, that it warrants us kind of spending the extra time and not just waving it off as an illegitimate concern.
There was one point in the article that said this could potentially be used for when Amazon's delivering a package to you. They could facial recognition to make sure they're delivering the package to the right person. And a use case like that, I see having a much more challenging time being kind of proliferated. Now, federal agencies tracking down somebody that committed serious crimes, and I think that's a totally different story.
Yeah, I don't think my neighbor wants her face scanned just because I'm getting a package. Like, that seems...
Yeah, not
that
Mike.
doesn't seem like a good look.
That's going to be an issue. But again, like you said, CJ, if you have a criminal or somebody with a background that warrants them having this technology used on them, it's going to keep people safe. And I think people ultimately will be okay with that. But like a package delivery,
I'll go to CVS instead.
That's dicey. Yeah.
last article from the day, and then we'll do kind of a quick recap and talk a little bit more about BRINC. But Flyby Technology in the UK teaches pilots to fly drones across the world. So this is a company based in New Yorkshire, England, and they've developed a drone pilot course to fly drones across the pond in other countries. The course is the first of its kind. It will allow international beyond visual line of sight flights piloted from a single location. One thing I thought this was really interesting about this, aside from just the commitment to education and BV Last Flight, is the drone training course will be taught by former RAF, so Royal Air Force and Royal Navy fighter pilots, and Army Air Corps helicopter pilots in collaboration with the Flyby Technology instructors. So whoever wants to kind of jump in here, what do you guys kind of make about these new courses coming out? Again, the commitment to education, commitment to hands-on training, and then what I think is more interesting is that traditional aviation and pilots are helping these drone pilots kind of learn how to do some of these longer missions.
Well, I think that speaks to the merging of the cultures, right? We're not as separate as we used to be. We're still separate and distinct. I fundamentally think that that'll always be true on some level, because the types of operations versus a commercial air flight or a military flight versus surveying and mapping, or the cool stuff Brett's drones are doing, those are all kind of different cases. But I think that the fundamental kind of rallying point is that aviation center, you have to have a core of understanding airspace now,
right?
Unless you're flying indoors, right?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah.
Brett, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like I mentioned earlier, we require training because you do need to have stick skills on our system. Right. And one of the biggest hurdles that I'm facing day to day right now, because we do have international customers as well as distributors, is, and this is just a temporary problem and a timely one, but we can't get across the border.
Right. ITAR?
No, not ITAR, COVID. If we have customers in Canada, and right now we can't get up there to train. If we go up there, we have to quarantine for 14 days, right? And we're a young startup. We can't have anybody quarantined for 14 days at the moment, right? That's a big problem for us. So in this new methodology of training, I think is great, because training is becoming more and more important. And I think that's only going to continue. So if I had the ability today to train an end user in London, that'd be phenomenal. And is that feasible right now? It's difficult. But the way Flyby guys is doing this and starting to train remotely, I'm a big fan of. And I think that it's something that is going to make the business model easier. It's going to make training probably more useful. And just the way we've all...
Nope, looks like we lost Brett.
I think he'll be back.
Yeah, he popped back last time.
Yeah, he likes us.
Yeah, internet.
We find solutions to problems, and I think that this is just another step in that direction and really figuring it out. So did I cut up there a little bit, Mike?
Yeah, you did. So let's move on to some more BRINC questions, because those are completely contingent on your participation. So CJ, what do you got for Brett?
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, what have those conversations been like with SWAT teams, or even a step back? Did the SWAT team have any history with drones before? You mentioned cold calling them, or maybe your founder was cold calling, but what are the SWAT team's history? What have those conversations been like? How receptive have they been? And I mean, without giving us any sensitive information, what are they most concerned about, or what are they most interested in? And what kind of questions are they asking? I just think that's a really interesting kind of conversations that you guys are having.
Yeah. So there's been a huge absence in technologies for this specific market. There's been a company called Sky Hero, which is a European company that builds an indoor tactical drone. And up until the introduction of the lemur to the market, that's pretty much been all there was out there available. So this is a new industry. But like you mentioned earlier, CJ, you know, their tolerance for technologies that fail is zero.
Yeah.
These guys have very, very high expectations. They are dealing with people's lives every single day, multiple times a day, and anything that they can do that they can rely on that will keep not only their guys safe but other suspects safe. You know, they're going to adopt at a rapid pace. So some of the things that make, you know, the lemur and our technology at BRINC really unique are starting with the composition of the airframe. So our airframe is a 3D printed nylon reinforced carbon fiber, so extremely light but durable as well. It's meant to take a beating, and that's important. A lot of other systems out there, DJI systems, don't have the durability that our system has, so that's really important. The camera system that we use is built to operate in low light conditions, you know, spot things that are the size of a handheld gun to a infant to a grown adult. So it's a fixed camera. It's a wide angle lens, 60 frame per second, 1080p. The payload has built-in night vision as well as IR illuminators, which is really important. And then our battery technology. So we don't use lithium polymer. We use a completely different chemistry. Blake, like I mentioned, interned at Tesla. So we basically have a little Tesla battery inside of our drone.
Wow.
So we're getting 31 minutes of flight time, up to 50-mile-an-hour speeds. And then we can perch for up to 10 hours. So if SWAT guys have a long barricade, a long standoff situation, you can land the drone, kill the motors, and perch for up to 10 hours with eyes and ears. So we're also the only drone in the world with two-way communications. So every lemur has its own unique cell phone number. We basically have an LTE board inside of the system where we have a very, very sensitive microphone and then a really loud loudspeaker that's just controlled via cell phone. So if you have your negotiator involved in the mission, he's going to be able to pick up his phone, call the lemur, it'll ring twice, and you now have ears and two-way communication to be able to de-escalate. And you know, policing is changing. These guys need more time to make decisions, and a technology like ours allows them to do that. So two-way communication is huge. Like I mentioned, our video signal, generally speaking, the pilot in command is going to be a block away, either in the Bearcat or in a safe location to where they're not in harm's way. They are able to be in kind of a sanitary cockpit and fly the system. And we also have a video repeater receiver box, right? So that is a small magnetized Pelican case that you can put to anything metal. You can put it on a tripod, put it on the Bearcat. That's going to 3x your command and control signal, and it's going to allow you to distribute the video feed via browser to anybody who wants to view the mission. So we can operate at you know, really long distances, which is important to these guys because you know, traditionally, if you were using a Spark or a Mini or something like that, the operator would have to be right outside the house, still in harm's way. So now the pilot can be totally safe, operating from far away. So, and going back to the battery technology a little bit, the perch time is really important, but we get 500 charge cycles, right? So, you know, I think lithium polymer, you're going to get 70 to 90, maybe 100 before they start to puff up. Lose storage space, lose energy. You can get 500 with ours, right? So the longevity is drastically more, and you don't have to store it at any certain storage rate, and any sort of capacity. So you charge it fully, it's ready to go for the next mission, which is really great for SWAT operators. Accessories, we have a really cool accessory kit, and we definitely post videos of the glass breaker a lot for a reason. We have a very easy to use payload bay on the bottom of the lemur, and one of our accessories is a glass breaker. So it's a tungsten carbide, basically a ninja star that can spin up to 30,000 RPM, and it's going to break, you know, the majority of glass that SWAT operators come across on a daily basis. So they can use it as a breaching tool to get through glass. We have a payload dropper. So if you are in a negotiation situation, and you needed to drop something off to the suspect, you would be able to do that. Very simple to use, up to a pound payload that you can drop off. We have a spotlight / floodlight attachment, right? So either to brighten up the video and or use on a suspect, you'd be able to do that very easily. And then a really kind of unique, cool accessory that we have is a terrestrial robot connector. So a lot of times for these guys, the con-op calls for a terrestrial or ground robot, breach the door and make entryway into the building. You can actually take the lemur off directly from the terrestrial robot. So a pretty cool feature. But turtle mode, like I mentioned, is something that is absolutely mission critical for these guys to be able to flip back over so the mission's not over. So everything that we've built and the way that we've built it is meant for these guys to open the case and be in the air in 45 seconds. You plug the battery in, the drone automatically turns on and automatically starts recording. You'd be amazed in these high pressure situations how easy it is to forget to simply hit record. So, I
don't think we'd be amazed.
Yeah, right, exactly.
We do a live stream twice a week. Yeah, we definitely know that. It's very easy to forget that one switch.
That's exactly right. So you plug the battery in, you're automatically recording. So all of these features are meant for these guys to operate in high stress environments, right? And ultimately, this is a tool for them to clear rooms without having to put people in harm's way, and de-escalate across the board. So, it's really cool to hear our SWAT consultants talk about it because Las Vegas Metro Police Department now uses this every day. They use it on every single call out, and it's proven to be a durable, useful tool for them. And so, we're excited. We're excited about the technology. We're getting very, very positive feedback. Like I mentioned, we do a lot of demos, and it's really fun to see kind of the group vibe and sentiment at the beginning, because again, kind of like the Vegas situation, these guys have had a lot of drone demos. They've had a lot of drone demos not go very well and walk away a bit disappointed. And so it's kind of one of those, like, sitting in the back of the room, arms crossed, like not exactly chit-chatting a lot. And then by the end of the 2-hour demo, we're, going out and having beers together. So they like the technology. It's definitely resonating with them. And, the lemur will be our focus for the next year or two. We want to really penetrate the tactical market. And then eventually we will be, releasing the product that you see behind me for a wider range of use cases. But yeah, we're a team of 15 now. We raised a seed round back in November, and we're getting ready to raise a Series A round to start to scale, and hiring actively. So it's a fun time. This is very different than my previous job in a big, huge company. I enjoy the startup kind of grind and vibe, and we're building a fun culture over here too.
Right. Really cool. Really cool. I mean, I was going to ask you what's kind of top of mind for 2021, but I think you kind of summed it all up there. I know we're coming up on an hour, Brett, but if anybody wants to learn a little bit more, maybe get in touch with you or get in touch with BRINC, find out some more about some of the systems, where can we send them?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of our social media channels, feel free to reach out there. The website is www.brincdrones.com. Feel free to email me directly, brett@brincdrones.com, or contact@brincdrones.com. Lots of ways to get a hold of us. We are in the process of building out a new website and creating some video content, so be on the lookout for that. And we are also building a pretty robust distribution channel. So, where most of you buy your drones now, you will likely be able to buy the lemur moving forward from your preferred distributor. So that is the easiest way to get a hold of us. And we'll respond as quick as we can.
Great. We'll put that information in the description for anybody that's listening. Thanks again for joining us today, Brett. Really cool. Loved hearing about it, hearing about BRINC, and hopefully we'll get a demo at InterDrone 2021. I know we were talking about that a little bit, so hopefully we can get that worked out.
Jan has some good news about that. So.
Oh, good.
Fingers
good.
crossed.
Yeah, we chatted last week. So yeah, again, we'd love to demo. Please reach out and we'll fly out and show you the technology in person so you can see it and believe it.
Great. Well, great. Thanks again for joining us. Thank you everybody for tuning in. And we will see you guys next week. Same place, same time. So have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, CJ. Thanks, Mike.